So today we will be talking about functions. So functions is, a new concept for you. So for some of you, and there are several reasons to use functions in programming. So look at this code. Here we have main function, and several blocks. So first, menu is printed, and then user choice is taken from console input, and based on user choice, we process particular case. So if it is 1, we ask user to enter the number of iteration, and we calculate pi value. If it is 2, we ask the user to enter the number of elements, and we get element by element from the console. If 3, we calculate a simple statistic for this array. So we sum all elements, we calculate min, max, value. Okay, so here we can add more options which are mentioned here. So for example, anagram or sorting. So what's wrong? What is wrong with this code? Look, we have a single function, so main function, and there are several blocks. Yeah, so of course we have indentations here and here, so it improves the code readability, but in fact this function is very long. So first, let's talk about readability principles. Okay, there is a question about quiz. No, today there will be no quiz, but next week we will have a quiz which sums up all. So it sums up 3 lectures. Okay, so the today lecture and 2 lectures next week. So I assume that a single quiz covers 2, 3 lectures from information engineering. Okay, so what are the readability principles for C++? So not only for C++, we can think more general. So first, indentations. So if we have curly braces here, using indentations, we can visually distinguish where particular block starts and where it ends. Yeah, so the second principle, identifiers. So for example, if we have identifier pi, we can infer that in this loop we calculate pi value. Yeah? of course, this identifier can be, you know, labeled as A, B, or C, but in this case, it's hard to understand this code. The third principle is comments. So here there are, you know, there are no comments in this code, but it's good habit to insert comments to explain how code works or what does particular variable mean. Okay. But today I'd like to tell you something about refactorization. So refactorization is one of the most important ways which led us to improve code readability. Okay, so let's analyze this code. So we try in the refactorization process, we try to extract blocks of code which perform, you know, single action. So in this code, we can distinguish several blocks. So the first is menu. So look, here we have code which print value on the screen and get user choice. Then we have this block which calculates pi. But inside this block, we can also extract the block which calculates pi and the block which, this outer block, which performs the user interaction. So ask user and print prints result. Okay, so here this cout pi belongs to this outer block. Get array. Also, we have block which takes values from user input and writes them into tab, so into array. Similar to pi block, we have output statistics block, so it calculates and print statistics for this array. But inside we can extract a block which calculates, so it only, you know, calculate statistics. Yeah, I think that in this code there are some bugs. Yeah, so this is one of them. So so here we have, oops. Here we have one misprint. Here there, oh, not here. Here it means it's greater. No, this two are okay. Yeah, but I'll try to copy this code into C++, and then we find I think several bugs more. But thank you for this hint here. Okay, so let's look at these blocks. So look, if we look at these blocks, we can find that the blocks are, you know, interrelated. So there are some, you know, dependencies between particular blocks. So for example, having block menu, you can see that here we have choice, okay, with misprint choice, and the choice is, so here it is initialized, but then it is used outside the block. So it is used in switch. So switch belongs to main function, not to menu. So again, here we have the block pi, where we get k, but this k is used inside the calculate pi block. And again, pi is calculated here, but it is used outside the block to print values. So similar, here we use tab index I, but this variable is used, for example, here. So we have the array which is declared, in main function. So this variable is used in this block, and it is used in this block. What else? Variable n is declared here, and it is used both in this block and here in get array. So you can see that even we extract blocks. So we want to take these blocks and create, functions. So create independent code sections, but we have to consider that there are some, interrelations. So we have to preserve these relations and these dependencies. So here you can see that min, max, sum, min are used also here during printing, values. So in general, we can find the shared variables. So the variables which are required by particular blocks, like statistic, calculate pi. So you can find them here. So they can be treated as input or inputs to the blocks, because they are used for, based on these variables, the process is performed. And we have also outputs, so results which are returned by a particular block. So look, here we have result. The result of get array is, our values which are printed here. The result of calculate pi is value of pi. The result of calculate statistics is min, max, and min value. So here we have several. Oh, okay. The result of menu is choice. So looking at this block, we can find two kinds, of relations. Okay. So now I'd like to tell you something about functions. So if we want to extract this block, we want to create a function. And function is, a block of code which has specified a list of arguments, so input value, and which return the result. So far, you had used many functions, I guess. So for example, if we take POW function, so it exponentiate first argument, and here we have exponent, the first argument is base. So look, the input values in function call are inserted in list of arguments. So here I have 1.2, here I have 2. And in fact, inside this function, the value of 1.2 squared is calculated. So based on your previous experience, I think that you are able to tell other functions, So what are the other functions? So we have power, we have sinus. Do you know any other? So for example, get car function. Huh? So in get car, there are no arguments here because the input is taken from console, but the result is a character, which was pressed by the user. What else? Yeah, yeah, all blocks. Yeah, that's true. That all blocks which are created like name, braces, and arguments here are functions. That's true. I'd like to tell you that even the cin, let's say, and not in this direction. So cin value is function 2 because this is only abbreviation. So the full form of this is operator cin value. So the name of the function is operator and stream, input stream, and two arguments, cin and value. So the name of the variable we want to initialize. So if we have function of this name, we can use shorter form for it. But be conscious that standard function in C and C++ looks like this, but sometimes we can write a function in shorter form. But in fact, compiler expands this notation into the full form of function call. But what is important here? If we use function, we don't need to know what is inside. So it's only the only thing we need to know is the function name, the arguments here, and so on. So creating function is similar to, you know, to some specialization which you can find in many daily life cases. For example, if you go to shop and, okay, not supermarket, but if you go to shop and ask a seller to give you something, you call in fact a function find bread or find, yeah, so there is a function find and the seller will give you it, yeah, so it returns it. You don't need to know where particular item is located. The same for okay, you can try to imagine that if we want to print something on a screen, so I can use a printf. So here's, you know, text and other arguments. So look, I call the program to, or I make the program to print this on a screen. But in fact, what happened behind the scene? If you look at your displays, there is a lot of pixels. So in fact, this command has to convert this text on the set of pixels which are turned off and on. So it has to control every pixel separately. Of course, it is performed by, you know, cascade calls of more or simpler functions, but for us it doesn't matter. We want to do something, we pass arguments, and we don't think how it works behind the scene. Okay, so looking at function concept, we can get, so calling function, we operate on some higher higher level. So we don't need to touch some very basic elements. Of course, with provided that we have function which has been already defined. If not, we have to define this function and then we can call them. Yeah, okay. So let's go further. So maybe I will try to run this example I showed you in my in the initial code. Okay, so oh no, okay, I created wrong code, wrong program. So once again, so C++ application. So choice, here get car. Okay, power is not defined, so hash include CMAP. And here we have default section, choice 6 and pause. Okay. On Linux there are no pause commands, so let's run it to check whether it works. So calculate pi, enter the iteration count, 3000. Okay, so partially it's should be okay. So then we have, let's say, get floating point array. So 2, number of elements 5, 1, 4, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And calculate statistics 3, min value 1, max value 8. Okay, it can be it seems to be okay. Yeah. So you can see that the program works. Okay, so let's go to the presentation. So look, here you have different function calls. So when I use a name function call, it means that I'd like to use, or I use a particular function. So here, when you use function sinus, it's a call of the function. So this is the nomenclature. For example, if you want to calculate number of or get full line of text, you call function getLine here. If you want to count the number of characters, you call function strlen. So call function is the place in code where you pass the input argument. So in this case, we pass the character array, and we read the final result. So here you have a function rand. So look, if we want to categorize functions, you can see that there are some functions which have one or more arguments, but we can find also functions which has no arguments, like rand, like okay. So let's stop on this example. Get the count or rand. We can have function which has the argument and it returns a particular value. But for example, for seed rand, so the seed rand initialize the random number generator, we don't have the value which is returned. But do you think that if there are no value, or if the function doesn't return value, it means that this function doesn't work? So if we expect value, so this is the value which can be assigned to particular variable. If not, it means that this function may, for example, change some inner state Yeah, so this state is not directly accessible for the user, but this state is, you know, is used further, for example, by rand function. The same, if the function doesn't have, you know, argument like in getCar, it doesn't mean that this function doesn't work, because it gets the data from the console, for example, or from file or any other source. So remember that every function can get, you know, additional information not only from arguments but also from inner state. Okay, so look, if we want to refactorize our code based on this cases, I can do something like this. So look, I can take the calculate pi block and substitute it as a car choice menu. So let's assume that I will insert comments here. So this function is similar to getCar, but in fact it should print the print menu on this screen and get user choice. Okay, then we have pi. So I can substitute this block by pi function. And again, okay, let's think about this block. So look, regarding the interrelations inside this block, we have two arguments, so two inputs, so tab and number of elements, and we have several outputs like mean, max, and so on. But for statistics, you can see that there are no yellow arrows which goes outside. So this relation is relation between calculate statistics and statistics block. So looking at statistics block, there are only two input arguments. So let's try to refactorize it. Statistics. And here we have two arguments, tab and n. Again, okay, so now I'd like to substitute also this block. And I showed you that in case of this block, the array is red and the number of elements is also taken. So in fact, in case of arrays, we have to make something different. So it is similar to scanf. For example, if we use scanf to get the decimal value, we pass array as an argument. So the value which is taken from console is inserted into array. So I'd like to apply the same concept for get array. So in case of get array, I pass my array as an argument, and the result will be the number of elements entered by user. So, so this value will be the result of get array function, and array will be, oh, not array, tab will be the input argument. So we can treat a tab as a basket, for example. So for example, if we go to shop, we take our basket and put them some products. So the same here. As input, I give array, so a basket, which is able to store elements. So I pass it as an argument, but inside array, this basket is filled with numbers, okay? So here you have the main function, which was refactorized. So looking at this code, you can see that this code was simplified. So the readability of the code is higher because, you know, I can use simply follow the or infer what is going on here. Okay, menu is printed, pi is calculated, gets array. So array is filled with values. Statistics is calculated. So this is very general knowledge what's going on here, but it's enough on this level of abstraction. Of course, if I want to see what's happened behind the scene, okay, I have to go inside this block. Of course, when I compile this code, you can see that menu is undeclared. Pi is undeclared, and get array and statistics are undeclared too. So because here I have only a function calls. So here I call function get array statistics, but to call this function, I have to define it. The function can be, you know, defined in library like printf or square root or power, etc. But if I create my own function, I have to define it before it will be used. So what is the function definition? In fact, in every program, you define at least a single function. So look, here is main program function. So I have int main, a list of arguments. So how it works? So maybe I create a new okay. So look, the full function definition looks like this. I have int argc char So arg file car arg c, let's say it can be like this or like that. Sometimes you can find this notation or this notation. Okay, now it doesn't matter. I will explain what the asterisk means later on. But look, here I have function and I have two arguments. So this is function definition. I have function name main. So it's main program function. I have arguments here. So the input information, and here I have the type of the returned value. So if I return something, so I'd like to pass value outside, I use return keyword and particular value. So this type and the type of this literal has to match. Okay, have to match. So let's try to look into the arguments. So first, cout, oops, arg file. Okay. So look, here I pass to directory where my application was created. So main function x, and I can call this function. Okay, maybe I will. Okay, so inside this function, only the arg file, so the value of the first argument, which is int, will be printed. So let's try to run it. So look. So maybe I don't know whether you can see one was printed. I can add here end line command. Okay, so one was printed, but if I pass, let's say, some argument, so I will pass, for example, Piotr, you can see that the number of arguments now is 2. Another argument 3, another argument 4. So you can see that the arg file value corresponds to the number of elements which are passed to my function. Okay. So let's try to explore the argc argument. So look, argc is character array, but in fact it's two-dimensional array of characters. So if I write argcout argc index 0 and okay, so let's try to do it like for int I equals 0, I smaller than argv I plus plus, and in every iteration I will print argc index I end line. So if I pass only the main function with no arguments, you can see that the first argument of this array is the name of function. If I have more arguments, you can see that the first argument is name of function, the second argument is the first value which was passed. Yeah, so I hope it's clear. So this is the way how functions works in general. So I have two input or more input arguments, so I can read these values inside function. So potentially, these arguments let me to modify the way how function work. So look, when we define function, we have to specify several elements. So the first oh, so the first element is the function name. The second, so this is the first one we should start. The second is function type, and then we have type of arguments here. So for example, if we have function call like this, we can infer that function name is sinus to meet this call. Then here we have arguments, so we can infer that the type of argument is float. Yeah, because here in this example we passed 3.13. And what's more, there is only a single argument here. So we have only one input argument. And what is the result of function? If the result can be, assigned to variable f, it means that the type of the function will be, for example, float, double, or so on. So this is the first element we have to, create. So the function, this is called a function header. So this is header. So the first line of the function. So comparing to main, you have the main, its name, type is int, so the result is 0, 1, or so on, and input arguments are argc, argv. What's going on inside function? Usually the function finished with the return result. Of course, if there is a variable result, it has to be defined before it will be returned. Okay, so let's try to define functions in our code. Okay, so look, here I have the choice menu. So if I like to define menu, I have to specify several elements. So function type, name, and type arg. And type of argument and name of argument, type of argument and name of argument, and so on, depending on number of arguments. So using this scheme, let's try to create a menu function. So first, type. Name is obvious, yeah, because name is main. What are the arguments here? Okay, the list is empty, so there are no arguments in this list. What is the function type? So to infer the function type, you have to analyze what is the result we can, assign or store the effect of the function call. So here, the result is car type. So we expect that menu should return the character which was, selected by user. So so here the function call will be car. Okay, so then I go to this piece of code, I take it, and I paste it here. So the okay, it's not main, menu. No? So here we have a function body, and look, to make it correct, I have to create variable choice. And look, this variable exists only in this scope. So it exists only from this point up to the end of the curly brace. So to pass this variable outside, so to pass it as the result of the function, what should I do? Does anybody know?
We should use the return function.
I can't hear you. Maybe I will increase my volume. Okay, so
maybe we should use the return.
Yeah, return choice. Yeah. Of course, I will change the name of this variable. So let's say cell, like selection, and I would return selection. There are no relationship between this variable and the variable choice here. Yeah? There are totally independent variables, even the name maybe or not the same. Yeah. So remember, okay. So now when the function is finished, the value is returned, and this value is assigned to the left side of this expression. Okay. So then it is used further for calculations. Okay, so you can see that the error, which is printed for pi get array, is not here, yeah? Because now menu has been already defined. Okay. So let's go to Pi. Pi function is quite strange because there are no arguments and there are no value which is returned. So type Pi. So in fact, the list of arguments is empty here. What is the type of Pi? If there are no value is returned, the type can be assigned as void. So void, no type. Sometimes in some examples you can also find that if the list of arguments is empty, here the void is printed. Okay, but you can skip it. Yeah. Okay, now I take this code and I paste it here. So look, inside Pi, we have also a sub block. So we have block which calculates Pi. So I can take this block and call not Pi here, but calculate Pi. Okay. So I call the function here and I expect that the value of Pi will be printed. So look, calculate Pi is quite similar to sinus or exponentiation and so on. So I need a type. Name is calculate Pi and argument. I have single argument k. So the first, what is the type of this argument? Does anybody know? Int, of course. So I have int, let's say, iterations. Yeah, so remember that the name of the input argument may be different than the name of the argument in function definition. Okay, what is the type of calculate Pi? Okay, it's hard to infer here because we don't have the explicit type, but based on the previous example, we may infer that it is float or double. Okay, so I paste the argument here, the code here, and look, k should be substituted with the argument name. No? So now I have not k, but I have iterations. And then when the Pi was calculated, I can return Pi outside. So in this case, the interface, so the way how we can get values from input and print values, value outside, is independent on the function which calculates pi. So look, in general, I can use this function for other purposes than this purpose. So for example, somewhere in my code, I can use this function to float radians is equal to 30 by 180 times calculate pi 1000. No? So having function which calculates pi, this function can be applied in other places. Yeah, Mr. Janiszewski, you're right. Now I create the code which works. Then I will tell you something about the order of functions. Okay, but now I try to do it on the way which let us to compile it without, you know, prior knowledge about the order. Okay, so remember that if you have function here, you can call this function many times and in many places. If we don't have functions, we have to, every time we have to copy this code, copy and paste this code. Okay, now let's skip get array, but let's try to focus on get statistics or statistics. So look, I have function statistics. So this is function call. I have two arguments. So here I need type of the first argument and type of the second argument and function type. Again, because there are no value which takes the function, the result of the function, I can infer that it is void. Like pi. Okay, the arguments types. For n, so for the second argument, which takes the number of elements, it's clear because n is integer, yeah? But what is the result or what is the type of array? So when I'd like to pass the array as argument, what will be the type here? Okay. Yeah. So the element of array is float. Yeah. But if I create argument float tab, it means that I'd like to pass only a single floating point value. But here I'd like to pass array. So the most common way to do it is to write here argument float, so type of array asterisk. So if you remember the previous example, here I have char asterisk, so array of characters. Sometimes you can find not float asterisk array, but float tab and square braces. Yeah? For most of compilers, these two notations are equivalent. So you can use this notation or this notation as well. Sometimes you can find also that the number of elements is defined here. So in this case, such argument can be only the array of 100 elements. In this case, there are no the limit of arguments. So the number of arguments can be 1 or 1,100. So 100,000 elements also. So I suggest you to use this notation. But sometimes for some compilers, this notation is treated that the only automatic array can be passed. What is the automatic array? What is the dynamically allocated array? I will tell you in maybe next week or in 2 weeks. So the most universal form which led us to pass both the automatic array like this or dynamically allocated array is the form like is this form. Yeah? So with asterisk. So I have type of argument element in array asterisk, and it tells me that the argument is not a single float, but it is array of floats or array of characters. Yeah. The location of asterisk is not important for compiler because it melts all spaces. Yeah. So sometimes you can find the definition like this or like that. It is the same, but in a sense of how we interpret it, it is treated different. But I will tell you something about this notation or meaning of this notation later on. Yeah, so we will be talking about pointers. So I will tell you something about some discrepancies in position of asterisks. But in sense of definition, they are equivalent. Yeah? Okay, so I have statistics. Okay. So the last function is get array. So again, look, get array has only a single argument and returns a value, the number of elements. So the argument, so tab, is the float asterisk. The type of the function, because it returns the number of elements, is integer here. Okay? And now okay. So the last is return number of elements. Okay. Look, the number of elements, so n, is underlined here. So it is because this value is not defined in a function scope. So I have to define this variable, and then I can use it and the return value. So look, the n is returned, but if we pass the array as an argument, it is similar to, I tried to explain you using this example with baskets. So in fact, we pass here our basket, and this basket is filled with numbers. So in fact, if you call tab I, this array will be filled. Of course, you can have different. Oh, not in this case. Okay, let's say you can have different name of this variable, but because this variable was, passed as an argument, all operations will be performed on tab. If you have, for example, two arrays, so I have tab array 1 or tab array 2, so depending on the array you call, in this call, the operations will be performed on tab. In this case, all operations will be performed on tab 1. No? So here you can see the next benefit of functions. So if you have function, you can call particular function for different variables. So for different arrays, it's enough to pass this array as an argument. If you have the code, like this, it works only for a single array. So if you have two arrays here, you have to clone this code. Okay, so now my program is ready to run. So let's try to run it. Okay. Okay, so the program, I have to have function refactorize as an active project. So then when I run it, okay, well, calculate pi, enter the number of iterations, okay, 6, exit. Something is wrong. Choice. Okay, here I have choice, which has been already defined here. Okay. Okay, so I run it in debug mode. So I try to show you how this function works. Okay, so look. Okay, so look, my code starts in main. So it tries to execute line by line, and here it comes to the first function I have created. So when I press step into, so not step over F10, but step into, so F11 shortcut, my program jumps into the menu function. So look, now here in the scope, you can see that there are no variables here. So because I have the dedicated scope, so now get car is, so I have to press, for example, get floating point array 2, and then the select, so 2 is stored, and now when I press F10, my program or my function finished and returns value and assign it for choice. So now the result of function is stored in choice variable. F10, okay, so again, I go to case 2, and F11 makes the program to go to the function. So look, now I have array of floats, which is the argument here. Yeah? And then we have to answer 5 elements. The first element is 10. Okay, I can pass more elements. So here I can add a watch. For example, tab, array index I, and you can see the value of the array. So initially this value is, let's say, random, so the array was not initialized, but when you call cn, this value is initialized with number I entered before. So you can see n is equal to 5. Array here is okay. Here in debug is treated as a single value. Maybe okay. So I go outside, and now I'm here in main function. You can see that my array was initialized, so the first 5 elements were initialized, while the all other elements are not initialized. So you can see that most of them have non-zero values. Okay. So this is the way how function works. So my current scope in main function is freezed, then the function is called. So a new scope is created. In this scope, some calculations are performed. Result is returned, and then I go back to my scope, to main function scope. Yeah? So 6. So I run it, continue F5, 5. Okay, so the program was terminated now. So here you have the slides which shows how these functions are defined. So now I'd like to tell you something about differences. So in arguments definition. So look at this first example. I have function do something which has 2 arguments, and the function definition is like this. So in function body we have x equal y. So we assign value y to x. So what you think? What will be the result? So what will be the value of a and b after calling do something function? Does anybody? No? Yeah. So look, inside do something function, when we call this function, the x will be equal to and y will be equal to, yeah, because x is equal to y. But the argument int x and value a are not the same. So in memory, I have variable a, variable b, they are arguments. Huh? But when I call function, the additional variables are created. So variable x and variable y. So a is equal 1 and 2 is equal 2. So calling this function like that makes to initialize x with value of a. So in this case, the value of a is assigned to x, so x is equal 1 and y is equal 2. So if you modify the value of x, so now it is 2, it doesn't affect the a, okay? Because, you know, a and x are different variables. Now, look at this example. So now my variables are not int x, but int reference x. So here I have the ampersand character. What does the ampersand do? It means that x and I are are references. So now in this case, a and b, a and x, they share the same area in memory, the same b and y. So if you modify x, it will affect the A. So initially, the A is 1 and B is 2, but if you perform this action, X will be 2. So it means that the value of A will always also change. So in case of this example, we tell that the arguments are passed by value, so they are copied. So argument is a copy of the original value. In this case, we tell that the arguments are passed by reference. So in this case, the X is a reference to A. So it shares the same memory as A has. So similar to reference, we have pointer. So like array. Array is passed by pointer. And you can see that if we pass the argument as a pointer, whatever we do inside the function, it takes effect outside. Yeah. So these two ways let us to modify arguments from the function. So let's try to use this property. So look, here we have statistics, and I showed you that we have the block which calculates statistics, and we want to, split the part which prints value with part from the part which calculates it. So look, I calculate statistics, but here I need time. And the problem is that because my function calculates mean, minimum value, maximum value, but here I can return only single value, so float, for instance. So only mean, max, or average. Yeah? So in this case, I can do something like this. So I can create float mean, max, and mean. And now I can calculate statistics and pass here array, number of elements, and mean, max, and average value. So what I want to achieve, I'd like to modify the value of min, max, and average. So I pass these arguments, but you can see that these elements are not initialized, so they are not worth to read. But I'd like to pass these arguments to initialize, so the function should initialize these elements inside. So in this case, my function calculate statistics can be void. And here I have I have to extend the list of arguments. So I have float mean, float max, float average. But now these arguments are passed by value, so they are copy of the original elements. So now it's enough to add, to make them reference. So now mean, max, and mean are references to original arguments. Of course, these names are not important. So you can use here different name. And look, so they have been defined here on a list of arguments. So here I initialize the min max. So the value of mean is the same as the value of mean in statistics function. So it will be initialized with first element of the array, and then it will be modified. So this is the way how I can, return more than one argument here. Okay. So let's run it, and it will be the last thing for today. So get floating point array, the number of maybe I run it in debug mode. Statistics, get array, menu. So first get array minus 5, 10. Oh, okay, number of elements 5, 10, 12, minus 1, 4, 3. And calculate statistics. So the program was, the breakpoint was activated, F11, I'm here, F10, okay, F11. So look, now I'm here inside calculate statistics. So I initialize min, max, sum, so I calculate them. Okay, so look, mean is 12, max is 12, so minimum value is -1, then average value is 5.5, and when I go outside, you can see that this variables has been initialized, because the mean here is the same as mean here, because it was passed by the reference. Okay? So finally, the value is printed. Okay. Okay. So that's all for today. So have a nice holidays, because no 3 days of holidays, but nothing will change. You have to be mostly at home. So be careful, and goodbye.
Thank you.